and friends, welcome to our Light and Darkness read for today. Chapter 5, The Honor. As men fetched the swords and armor, Bonson was in high spirits. This had potential to be the best day of his life. He had no wish to kill Alva at this point, he just wanted to defeat him. It was the only match he cared about. By a wonderful chance, Hope would be present to see it. Of course, Bonson knew that Hope would never choose him over Alva, but if she could see once that he was Alva's superior, it would give him something that might make the rest of his life bearable. Like Hellel, Alva knew he was taking a great chance here. He had heard of Bonson's recent tournament in detail from Hellel. Always formidable, Bonson had greatly improved in the last months. Also, Alva knew he could probably win the match with a trick, much as he had done with Glandair, but he knew that would not be the kind of victory he needed. If the Lords would follow his military leadership, it would be an important turning point. He must win with classical skill rather than trickery. In his duel with Glandair, a simple victory served his purpose. But now he must win with lordly style. Bonson must not only be outsmarted, he must be outmatched. The Great Hall had more than sufficient room for a duel. It was determined that the duel would follow the rules of broadsword fighting in a traditional tournament. A clean hit to the head or torso would end the duel. Hope felt nervous for Alva, not because she cared whether Bonson could defeat him, but because she knew Alva's victory would be important for the Lassenian cause. Alva was a great swordsman, but this kind of match was Bonson's element, and she too had heard about his recent exploits. Even Alva's victory would make her sad in one sense. Bonson was a broken man, and losing would surely break him even further. It seemed like something bad would come out of this duel either way, and she wondered whether it was a harbinger of bad things to come. The armor was not made of metal, but of thick padding which covered the torso to prevent excessive bruising or broken bones. Arms and legs were left unpadded for better mobility because a man could not generally be killed with a blow from a blunt blade to the arm or leg. There were also padded helmets, but both Alva and Bonson preferred not to wear them. Better visibility was worth the chance of a blow to the head. The Lords gathered in a wide circle in the Great Hall as Alva and Bonson walked into the middle to face one another at last. The floor of the hall was white polished stone. Both men knew that such a surface was slippery in a sword fight, but both were very sure-footed. The two warriors faced one another, and Alva said, "Thank you for the honor, Lord Bonson." Bonson replied, "Lord Alva, for once the honor will be all mine." Alva smiled. "We shall see," he said. The two men simultaneously touched the sword hilts to their hearts, then held the blades at full extension and touched the tips together like a pyramid. As in Alva's last duel, the pyramid was off-center because his opponent was much taller. "Finally, Lord Bonson gets his wish," Hellel thought. "I'm sure Al-Saladinay would say, 'Be careful what you wish for.'" Having given the traditional sign of respect, the men took their guard. Their eyes were fixed on one another's with intense focus. Whatever might happen, neither man underestimated the other. The match had no referee. The Lords figured that these men knew enough to work out their own beginning, and the end would certainly be clear to all. The two men nodded simultaneously as if to say, "Begin." And Bonson immediately attacked as he had done with Svarian. Alva took 2 steps back, blocking 2 blows. It looked like he would be driven back further, but he sidestepped, and as Bonson lunged forward, he attacked from a side angle. Now Bonson looked to be in trouble, but he was quick and agile and defended the attack. Bonson's defenses had not been breached by a dueling opponent since he was 14. At that age, he had become able to defeat all his instructors, and in the tournaments, a breach of defenses meant a loss. Bonson had never lost. Being much smaller, Alva looked to be outmatched, but he knew how to fight men of every size. When Bonson attacked, he would move to the side rather than backwards, and he always blocked Bonson's strokes at an angle, causing his blade to glance away rather than receiving the full force of the blows. Bonson was amazed at Alva's speed on his feet. Wherever his blows came down, Alva was not there. Alva in turn was amazed at Bonson's speed. He had never seen anything like it in a man this size. Whenever Alva would sidestep his attacks and maneuver into an attack of his own, Bonson's quick footwork would alter his own position to be able to defend himself and rework himself into an attack position. The match was a portrait of technical perfection on the part of both men. Every time Alva seemed to be in trouble, he would change his position. Sometimes Bonson's blade would miss him by a hair. Every time Alva attacked, Bonson's perfect defenses kept him from being hit. The lords were thoroughly enjoying the show. It was doubtful whether such a match had ever occurred in Laconia, in the Huron Empire, or even in the world. Periodically the men would go still in an on-guard position, then the fight would continue, circling and maneuvering all around the giant ring with perfect footwork, perfect attacks, and perfect defenses. When the fight had gone on for 20 minutes, neither man seemed to be the least bit tired. It was somewhat stuffy in the hall with the windows closed, and both were sweating, but neither was breathing hard. Both were in pristine physical condition, and both were having the time of their lives. Alva had not fought a man with this kind of skill since his father passed away. Winning with swords had never been difficult. He usually fought against multiple attackers, but they had never presented a challenge like this. Bonson had never fought a match that lasted more than 2 minutes. On this day he experienced a new thrill. There were only 3 things in the world that this young lord really loved: hope, his horse, and swordplay. This competition was like nothing he had ever imagined, and the thrill of it was pumping through his veins. This was indeed the best day of his life. Each man adapted his style, or as each man adapted his style, the other would counter-adapt. The men could read one another perfectly. Some of the lords began to wonder if victory was possible for either man. After 30 minutes passed, the match finally came to a climactic finish. Alva had never lost his footing in a fight, but during one of Bonson's mighty attacks, his left heel came down on a puddle of sweat, and as he stepped back with his right foot, Bonson knew this was no feint. As Alva's left foot slid forward, his torso fell back, and Bonson swung his blade downward at a diagonal angle, right at Alva's torso. But Alva was a master of his body. As his left foot slid forward, he bent his right knee downward, almost touching the ground. As he did this, he bent his body backward as Bonson's sword glided over his nose, missing it by a hair. Pushing off his right toes, he then jerked his body forward, and moving to Bonson's right side, swung his blade directly into the center of the larger man's torso. Bonson let out a short "ooh" from the force of the blade hitting his thick padding. Then both men stood erect, touched the hilts to their hearts again, and touched the tip of their blades together. The duel was over. Alva had won. For some time, Alva and Bonson continued to stare into one another's eyes. Bonson looked as though he wanted to speak, and Alva wanted to let him speak first if he so wished. "Never before," Bonson began, but his voice trailed off as though he did not know how he wanted to finish the sentence. After a moment, he began again. "What I said before was correct. The honor was truly all mine." "I'm afraid you'll have to share," Alva replied, dropping his sword and extending his hand. "The only man I've ever known who could fight like you was Al-Salah Dene." Bonson dropped his sword as well and shook Alva's hand. The room broke forth into a loud cheer. Hillel, Pincer, and Pryor took particular satisfaction in this conclusion, knowing these men's history as they did. Hope glowed so brightly that the lords forgot about Alva and Bonson as they stared at her. While most of the lords stared at Hope, one of them drew their attention back to the two men. He stepped into the circle and shook hands with Bonson. "I congratulate you, my lord," he said. "Never have I seen such a match." He then turned to Alva. It struck the lords, seeing them face one another, that these men had a similarity in appearance. This lord had black hair and blue eyes, whereas Alva's hair and eyes were brown, but they were the same height and had similar facial features. "Lord Alva," he said with a bow, "I was hesitant to believe that Al-Salah Dene truly had a son, but now it is undeniable. I am Diran, son of Baknan, son of Biran. We share a grandfather. Your mother was my father's sister. To meet you is an honor beyond words." Tears formed in Alva's eyes. He had never met a kinsman of his. He bowed in return, and the two men embraced. Again the lords cheered. Diran's face was the final validation of Alva's identity. It was well known that his aunt had been the wife of Al-Salah Dene, and now it made sense why Alva did not look like his father. Lord Ben-El could see that he had made an error. It had seemed impossible to him that this older, smaller man could defeat his son. However, he was still a master tactician, and he was not defeated yet. "A very impressive demonstration indeed," he said. "But what does fighting have to do with this meeting?" "It was you who suggested the match," Hillel responded. "I did," Ben-El responded, "as a way for Lord Dene to validate his claims. However, this only brings us to more questions. Setting aside the fact that Al-Salah was stripped of lordship and considered to be a man of unnecessary violence, his son seems to have come to start a war with Dahman. One man cannot win a war, however great a warrior he may be, and we are all under an oath of loyalty to Hurin. Are we seriously considering treason because we happen to disagree with one decision our leader makes?" "I am loyal to Hurin, not Dahman," one of the Hurin lords said. "And I say that if our emperor willingly surrenders the land of his fathers to Dahman, then he has committed treason against us." Ben-El turned to Tyagon and said, "You see where this madness is leading? That man could be hung for treason at this very moment." Tyagon did not move or give any change in expression whatever. He was listening and was not yet ready to speak. "Now that you have seen me fight at your own request," Alva said with authority, "you will now hear me speak." I have encountered the power of the Dahmanim on a very personal level, and yes, I will protect Laconia from its evil. I recognize that there are difficult questions of loyalty at play. Here he looked at Tyagon and Philon. But this is a question of light and darkness. Specifically, will we surrender the light kingdom to the kingdom of darkness? I personally believe that this would be a greater crime for any of us than opposing the wishes of the Huron emperor, who only does what he does because he believes he has no choice. Bonsan's eyes were fixed on Alva as he spoke. Our emperor is called Teraphon the Wise, Ben-El replied. Perhaps we should consider his wisdom. If all the might of Huron cannot oppose Dachmon, what makes us think we can do so with far less resources? I mean no disrespect, but we have one little girl who glows in the dark. They have hundreds of Dachmanim, and thousands upon thousands of soldiers with the combined force of Huron and Dachmon. I understand well that we will lose much under Dachmonian rule. My emperor realizes this as well. But victory is impossible. We must be realistic and preserve what good we may of the twin kingdoms. I favor the ethics of Divan the Great over the wisdom of Teraphon, great though that may be, Alva replied. For me the only question is one of right and wrong. Dachmon is evil, and I will protect the land of my fathers from its evil. I suppose my Lord Danae considers himself to be the arbiter of right and wrong, Ben-El said, braving some sarcasm. Nira, usually so impassive, fixed her gray eyes on Ben-El. Her eyes were smoldering with rage. The lady who accompanies my ward is called Nira, Hellel said. She is the daughter of the last king of Non, which fell under Dachmonian rule many years ago. I believe she has something to say. Any questions of good and evil will be settled very quickly under Dachmonian rule, Nira began. Her voice was even but had a razor's edge of anger in it. If you think that you will be treated better because of your nobility, you will soon find otherwise. Dachmon will take your sons and daughters for any reason they wish, and do anything with them that they wish. There will be torture chambers, slave markets, and games of death. Whatever cruel delights the Dachmonians may devise will be carried out without hesitation on the noble and common people alike. As I understand it, Ben-El said, Non fought a feudal fight against Dachmon. Perhaps we would be treated less roughly than the lady's people if we did not resist them. So you're saying, Alva responded with sarcasm, that we should willingly submit our kingdom to evil rulers who deal in slave markets and torture chambers in the hope that they might be a little nicer to us than other conquered kingdoms. You're twisting my words, Ben-El replied. That was not my intention, Alva said. I beg you to explain your point if I misrepresented. You are clever, Lord Alva, Ben-El said. It is not what I said that you misrepresented, but the light that you put it in. My desire is not to subject the people to evil, but to protect them from worse evil. I understand you full well, Lord Ben-El, Alva replied, and I beg you to understand that the only thing that can protect our people from the evil of Dachmon is hope. Surely Lord Hellel has already told you that a dark warrior with 200 men was sent to assassinate her because they understood this very point. With Lady Hope behind us, we can at least fight. My father left the Lacinian court in disgrace because he believed it was the best thing for the people. But Huron was not Dachmon. I have spent my life in obscurity, hiding my identity and hoping for nothing more than to live my life in peace until it ended. Hope pulled me out of this. Without intending to, she forced me to be who I really am. I am the son of Al-Saladinay the 26th, the descendant of Al-Saladinay the 1st. I come to you to offer my services in defending the people of Laconia because I believe in hope. In hope dwells the light. She represents all that is good in this world, and the power within her can save us. Without making a stand, nothing about Lassania can be saved. Our existence will become a living death. Nira nodded as Alva finished his statement. Bonsan's eyes were fixed intently on Alva. He only blinked when absolutely necessary. At this moment, Hope addressed Tyagan. "Your Majesty, may I speak?" "By all means," the king responded. "I have lived a very sheltered life," Hope began. "Lord Hellel had to keep me hidden for my protection, so I know very little of the world. They speak of me as though I was the hope of Lassania and all men, and I don't think this is really true." At this statement, Lord Ben-El seemed to find some encouragement. "It is true that flowers and animals love me. It is true that I glow sometimes. Lord Ben-El would call this a trick, and he may be right, though I don't do it on purpose. But I have seen the power of light. Over the last year, Alva has showed me the real power, and the real power of light consists in truth, justice, honor, courage, compassion, and love." Here her face assumed a glowing blush, charming everyone in the room. "When my friends stood against a dark warrior at the dry lake, I did not run back to save Lassania. I ran back for selfish reasons. Alva told me he loved me, and I could not bear to lose him. I was not afraid because of the power of the Dakhmanim. It has no effect on me. Alva and my other friends were terrified, but they stood anyway. They stood with everything to lose and nothing to gain, just to buy me some time to get away. Their selfless love and sacrifice showed me what the light really is, and I will fight for that light with my last breath. Dachman murdered my parents and all my relatives on my mother's side. I don't want revenge. Alva's father taught him that revenge was wrong. Alva taught me this, and I believe it. But I want to protect other children from losing their parents. I believe the real light of Lassania shines most clearly in Alva Dene. He is our real hope, and I will follow him until he falls. And if he does fall, I will keep fighting so that his light does not stop shining. Truth, justice, honor, courage, compassion, and love." When she had finished, all were silent for some time, watching her beautiful face as it radiated with love and passion. After a time, one of the lords asked how it was that she came there safely when less than a year before the Dakhmanim had sought her life. "I found what I needed in La Sacrestin," she answered. "Let them come after me now." When she said this, for an instant she both looked and sounded like Alva, bringing a smile to the faces of Hellel, Nira, Pinsor, and Prior. Lord Ben-El was not mastered, however. "I assure you we're all touched by your romance," he said, "but let us maintain a semblance of reason. Love stories cannot win wars." "Why not?" Hellel asked. "I beg your pardon?" "You said love stories cannot win wars. I was wondering on what basis you make this assertion." "Lord Hellel, we have been friends for many season changes," Ben-El said, "but your question is madness." "Madness or not," Hellel replied, "I believe that before all is done, we may see that a love story truly can win a war." "Even if we deem that it was somehow justifiable to commit treason," Ben-El responded, trying to bring things back to the strong points in the argument, "we cannot win against impossible odds." "Then we must alter the odds," Alva responded. "You speak nonsense," Ben-El said in frustration. Suddenly Pinsor broke his silence. "What is nonsense when another man says it makes perfect sense when a Dene says it." "I'm glad to see this council has become a free-for-all," Ben-El said. "Who is this old man who sees fit to address this assembly at will? Is he a lord?" "He has no title," Alva said, "but he is as much of a lord as any man in this room, and anyone who wishes to challenge me on that point had better do so with a sword in his hand." My king, Ben-El said imploringly to Tyagon, surely you see this as madness. Lord Alva, Tyagon said, please refrain from making challenges in my assembly. Everything in Alva wanted to justify his conduct. Tyagon was a Huron king. Why should he bow to his wishes? Why should he not make challenges if his friend were insulted? What could Tyagon really do when he had Pensor and Prior at his side? Hel-El knew their mission was sitting on the edge of a knife at this moment. So did Hope, and she gave Alva a distressed look. Her eyes said, please? I ask your forgiveness, your majesty, Alva said. Granted, Tyagon said. Then he addressed the council. I do not doubt anything Lord Hel-El has said. I have some personal experience with the evils of Dockmon. A Dockmonian ambassador entered Lassania without permission and visited Lord Philon without my knowledge. Then he visited me. He had a Dockmonim bodyguard with him, and I could feel the evil and terror he wielded. He had a power over me that was difficult to resist, and treated me like a child rather than a king. He made clear that Dockmon meant to have its way with Lassania, and any who opposed him would suffer greatly. He had the opposite effect of what he wished for. I am the son of Diaphon the Conqueror. I am not eager to surrender my kingdom without a fight. However, Lord Ben-El's point is also well taken. I have an oath of loyalty to my brother, Teraphon the Wise. This creates a difficult ethical dilemma with which I have been struggling for some time with no resolution. At present, I make these pronouncements. Lord Alva, I honor you and welcome you into New Lassania. Lady Hope, you are a treasure beyond imagination, and I promise that whatever may happen, you will not be surrendered to Dockmon. Lady Nibra, I welcome you as the rightful queen of Non, and decree that you will always be treated as a queen in this kingdom. Nibra was shocked at being addressed, but she curtsied gratefully and said, I have always been treated as a queen in your kingdom, your majesty. To be allowed to care for Hope is to be treated as a queen. Tyagon nodded, then said, as for the issue at hand, the issue that we must face in this assembly, I will take one more night to consider the right course of action. We will meet again in this hall at dawn tomorrow. Then I will give my answer. I hope you all can wait.